Franklin sits down into the plush but patched chair in the briefing room, exhausted but ecstatic. It all made sense, the engine, the energies, and the way it balanced itself. It gave him ideas, wonderful, remarkable ideas that a hand smacks him in the back of the head, and he lashes out to the side and backhands Ryu in the ribs. "You are an idiot," the Japanese soldier states plainly. "The hell do you know? I fixed the engine, and missed the fact that Mabby was all but humping you as you did it." "She what?" Franklin demands, as there are snorts and chuckles around him. "Lay off the poor bastard. He doesn't get it," Jake remarks, even as he swishes around a clear liquid before taking a deep drink and grimacing in disgust. "Yes, but if he gets any denser, he'll have his own gravity," Victor replies with a friendly grin as Franklin groans. The Russian man is past the sample of the drink from Jake and looks like he swallowed vinegar after just sniffing it. "This is more ethanol than proper vodka. First batch, we need to refine the still and find out how the bitch wants to work with us," Victor says ruefully. "You fuckers already set up a still?" Franklin demands, and there's some shrugs all around. 3. Vodka, moonshine, and beer. "Also, you said you know how to make mead?" Victor asks, and there's a nod from the nerd. "Yeah, it's easy. Some honey and water and brewer's yeast in a sealed glass container. Sit it in some dark, dry corner for a month or 3, and you've got mead. Liter or gallon?" Victor presses. "Gallon's best, but you can crank it up hard. I don't know the ratios offhand, but I've got on file somewhere," Franklin replies, tossing his datapad to Victor, who starts studying through it. "You have nearly 1,500 words in bullet point about the eccentricities of the engine," Victor notes. "That is a small essay's worth," Cy remarks. "Do you even know the difference between passion and obsession?" Lou demands. "If I say no, will you guys knock it off?" Franklin demands before thinking, "Wait a second. There's no way in fuck you lunatics put the stills together and brewed some hooch in less than a day. What's going on?" "We just moved our operation here. The Dauntless had about 30 illicit stills up and running, and we got a good run of each type," Victor explains before taking another sip and outright wincing. "We should not have started in 0G. The spills were insane and the product is nasty. If nothing else, we've got Molotov fuel," Jean-Luc notes thoughtfully. "If you girls are done bitching at each other and spreading gossip, the movie's about to kick off. We're skipping the first Rambo because there isn't a big enough body count and cranking the volume up," Brent says, activating the holo projector and the speakers. With even the general sounds of the movie blaring loudly, the men start whispering and scheming among each other. Before Rambo is even properly introduced, they've all told Franklin some variation of, "Pick up the Catwoman, French her, and let her take the lead from there." Franklin, for his part, has told each and every one of them their own variant of fuck off. As explosions ring out, arrows fly, and knives sink into the meaty bits of sadistic scumbags, they generally plan things out and come to a few important decisions and realizations. "You know, guys, I've been doing some digging. They're not going to call us human out there. The list of sentient races the galaxy over is insanely huge. Outside of whatever the fuck it is that's blanketing the Sol system, most worlds are habitable and inhabited. So much so that there's too much overlap. Best I can tell, our own race will be classified as BMO 100-100-1, or bipedal, mammal, omnivore, 100 per 100 number 1. Brent muses after a particularly sadistic scene with mines. "Really? So it's how you get around what kind of animal you are, what you eat, man-to-woman ratio, and how many others like you there are?" Jean-Luc asks and gets a nod. "What are the other classifications?" "Well, the first one can also be a Q, M, T, or a W, or quadruped, multiple, tail, or wings. Multiple is a catch-all for the odder ones like spiders or tentacles. The rest are obvious. Second category is what general part of the animal kingdom it's in. Mammals are most common. Generally, the third is just carnivore, herbivore, and omnivore, but apparently there are some plant people out there. Most of the sex divides are at 1 per 100 and have never before gone better than 10 per 100. The last number goes over 100 in some places. That is a dizzying array of alien life," Lou notes with a far-off expression on his face as he tries to picture it all. "And each and every one has multiple native languages, history, cultures, and standards. not counting the ones that have broken off into subspecies and independent colonies, religions and cults and all the other dividing lines. The only unique things about humanity and Earth are our terrible location and, shockingly, even gender ratio. Brent groans as he mentally goes through the ship roster he scanned and realizes that few of them actually come from the same species. Easy travel between planets means you get places where all the cultures run together until nothing distinct remains. The first person to suggest memorizing such things will be waking up duct taped to the warp drive. Franklin cuts in and there's a moment of silence as everyone mentally agrees. Right, well, moving on, just remember that no matter what happens, these girls are pirates. They're criminals and killers. They were trying to be slavers and likely will try rape. Make sure you've got protection at all times. And I'm not talking about rubbers. Brent finishes up and everyone holds up a pistol. Good. Remember, we don't owe them sex. We don't owe them love. And if they try and force it, show them your training, he says, and there are sober nods as the guns are checked and carefully tucked back away. Not to say it's a bad thing if you find it, just remember, your terms, not theirs. Brent remarks before slouching into his seat. The conversation is done and the movie is ramping up. Meanwhile, in the hallway. I'm hideous. I have to be. I nearly crawled into his pants and he refused to even acknowledge it. Mabby bawls over Agenda, who can barely resist shaking the stupid girl. Mabby, she tries. I'm going to die alone and unloved, the Faylee wails. Mabby, she pushes a little harder. My line dies with me because I can't grab a man even when he's all but thrown at. The wailing engineer is cut off with a harsh shake from her captain. Mabby, he has a mental disorder. It's in his file. He's denser than a brick of tritite when it comes to social things. Anything short of dragging him into your bunk and dancing down his dick will go over his head. She struggles not to snarl. It won't help the situation. Really? Mabby asks with a sniff. Yes. He's on this mission because he's fanatically obsessed with what he thought was science fiction. The idea of having an adventure in space is basically what he's always wanted since he was small. He's getting that now, so it will take borderline blunt force trauma to get him to notice anything else. So apply the blunt force trauma and move on, all right? Agenda prefers her drama away from vital systems of the ship and those that maintain them. Really? Apparently Mabby's having a hard time swallowing this. I've spoken to the other men. They're literally telling him he's an idiot for not noticing, even as we speak. Agenda says, and the few crew nearby are staring, but she can all but feel the gazes of most of her crew through the security system. Girls, they evolved in cruel space. Proper technology doesn't work there. They have no adepts. The same horrible stuff that will make your body shut down and tear itself to pieces is their normal. We're lucky that they don't produce it themselves instead of just being immune to it. You can't expect them to act like normal men. They're all soldiers. Soldiers that signed up for what may very well be a suicide mission into the unknown and unknowable. Captain, we got that when the men repelled us with crude kinetics when we were rocking well-made and well-loved mechanoid assault suits. 10 girls died to that debacle, and I'm not making that mistake again. They're dangerous. They're not the pampered little princes that is the modern man. These are would-be warlords that just so happen to have something swinging between the legs instead of bouncing on the front and back. Her head of assault, Mercy, nicknamed ironically, says with a snarl. The winged woman on all fours takes a deep breath and grins. Still, think of the children. Girls so tough they can survive in cruel space. Girls so vicious that even their fathers are killers. Girls so enduring that they can work for 8 hours straight with barely a break and consider it routine. Routine? Agenda asks. The men had set up 2 distinct production facilities and got them running, moved into a new ship, ran engine maintenance and did a quick inventory of all their supplies. The work of days done in a third of one. I've got the ears, Captain, the bat-like woman says before reaching up with one wing to flick the massive thing on the right side of her head. I've been listening to them as much as they've been listening to us. They've worked what they consider a standard shift. They've done it at a relaxing, indulgent pace. They have each done the work of 5 women apiece and were taking their sweet time. Their race, the human, is skillful, tough, and enduring. That alone makes them valuable. Massively male on top of it? We're going to be the envy of every gang in this branch of the galaxy, at least until their superiors start hiring more bands. You want one of them for the first night, don't you? Agenda asks, and Mercy flinches. Oh, for pity's sake. Which one? The dark-skinned one? Mercy asks. Jake? Yes, him. The Sonier confirms. Just so you know. She tries to warn her subordinate of something that each of the men messaged her. 10 different iterations of, I'm okay with sex, but if I'm cornered, I'm shooting my way out. He will shoot me if I try and force it, I know. I want a clear run at him without interference. Fine. Whatever. So long as I get a deep dicking, I don't care. Hump down and bond yourself to whichever one you want. Just make sure you register when you get knocked up and who the daddy is. Yes, Captain, Mercy says with a smile revealing her fangs. Agenda isn't intimidated or fooled. Crazy woman's an herbivore with a major sweet tooth. She can't digest meat and can barely stomach vegetables and tubers. That goes for everyone. Keep injuries to a minimum when fighting for these boys. We have a raid coming up fast, and I want every woman ready and able for it. Aye, Captain, Mercy replies before Agenda gives a vicious grin. Now, I've actually got an idea for the men that they'll probably like. They won't be in danger, so the girls won't be distracted, but they'll be buying us a lot of time, and the fact they kind of look like nearly a dozen different races across the galaxy will help. Only at first, Captain. These are without a doubt the most aggressive, hard-bitten, and tough men outside cruel space. That's bound to get attention, Mercy reminds her. Yes, it is. Tell me, Mercy, do you think our boys would be up for a city-spanning brawl to serve as a distraction? Agenda asks, and Mercy looks shocked before grinning so wide that her every fang gleams in the light. I'll take that as a yes. With some fake frenzy patches, we could also seriously smoke our trail, but first, why don't we ask them? Mercy asks with a cackle as she rushes the door to the hall. Hey boys, holy shit, she exclaims as she watches an incredibly well-built and grizzled man reduce another to nothing more than red paste with a vehicle-grade weapon. The scene is paused, and 10 men look right at her even as she gets a good look at the action star covered in gore. That's the kind of thing you like to watch? Yes? One of them asks, and she blinks before shaking a bit. Clearly, this needs to be a whole crew kind of thing. Anyways, we've got a plan for you punks in our snatch and grab with our former boss. You boys up for running distraction through the city in an escalating brawl? Sounds fun. The one that spoke up earlier, Ryu says. By the by, Batgirl. Mercy. Mercy says to correct him, and he grins. Got any plans tonight? He asks with an obvious leer, and her jaw drops and she flutters a bit. Then she gets control again and smiles widely. Well, I was going to go for the bigger one, but if you're so eager, I guess I'm doing you, Mercy says with a leer of her own. He's smaller than the Dark One, but when it comes to these men, if they're not made of chiseled stone, then they're made of braided wire. Ryu is one of the wiry ones. Fantastic. What room and time? Forward first, right after the firing tubes on deck 3. Whenever you've got the guts to be there, I'll rip membrane if you show up. Mercy purrs at him, and Ryu looks back to the rest of the group. He then says something to the rest of them in a human language. And there's a gale of laughter as he vaults over the seat he was in and charges out. Come on, Bat Tits, we're getting freaky! He calls, racing down the hallway, and Mercy manages to regain herself and chase after him, only to be hit in the face by his jacket, which he shed during the race.